Thank you, everybody. It's great to be here. My name is Louis Cohen. I'm a co-founder of a law firm called DLX Law based in New York, Delaware, and Washington, D.C. We have an amazing panel. I'm so psyched. We're going to do very quick introductions, and then we're going to get into a discussion about what's next for NFT platforms. So Morten, why don't we start with you? Come across for intros, and then we'll get into the discussion.
Right. Hello, good morning. My name is Morten Søberg. I come from Norway, and I work for the second largest finance group in Norway called Sparebank 1. And we have initiated an NFT project, which was launched up in the Arctic in April. And it's been doing its rounds around the world. We have users from, in total, 190 countries. North Korea and French Guinea are the only countries, I think, that are not online as of yet. But that can change, of course. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Daniel Sloan here from FutureTech. We're a systems integrator. We're an Accubits company. We have about 400 developers. I've been working in the NFT space since ERC 721 was released in 2018. I've done a lot of great projects. We're actually investing in a number of companies that have tech that can integrate into different platforms. So excited about that. And if you have any cool tech, please come find me.
Hi, my name is Emily. I'm CEO of Metaplex Studios. We support the Metaplex protocol. We are the NFT protocol of Solana. And what's been really interesting is since our launch in June, due to the market forces of Solana being 100x cheaper than other blockchains, we've really grown and have 1.2 billion in market cap. So excited to engage with everyone in the community. It feels like this is the year for NFTs. It's either you're under a rock and you've not heard of NFTs, or you have like an NFT ETH rock. So just excited to be here and connect with you all in your projects and support them the best way we can.
I'm Tristan Littlefield. I'm co-founder of NFT42. I work primarily on the TokenSmart and Avastars project as a developer, and I'm also working on our new project called Nameless, which we just closed our second seed fund round last week. So Nameless is, we're working on creating a whole white label minting platform, and our focus is trying to make the best NFTs possible with modules that work with anything. We're starting Ethereum, but we're working towards being chain agnostic, and the reason we chose Nameless is because it's your contract, not ours. So that's what we're hoping to bring to the market soon.
Hey everyone, my name is Lior Shibron. I work at Kraken, do strategic partnerships at Kraken. Kraken, we are one of the world's leading crypto exchanges serving over 9 million users globally. I am also a Forbes contributor where I discuss emerging trends within crypto and blockchain, having written about NFTs quite a bit within my writing. And at Kraken, we're always looking to push the envelope and give our users access to the best assets within the crypto space. So NFT is something that we're exploring at the moment.
Fantastic, thank you all. Well, I feel very privileged to be in this space as a lawyer because I get to kind of work with everybody. So it's really an honor. And really what we've seen in the last, give or take 12 months, maybe even less, is this incredible growth, but attraction of some of the best and smartest and most creative people to the NFT space. And I think one of the reasons is because we're all struggling to figure out what are the future of these platforms. And when we say what are the future of NFT platforms, I think in many ways we're asking what are the futures of the internet. We talk a lot about the metaverse, and we'll talk about that on this panel. But I think we have a white piece of paper here, and all of you in this room and listening online, can start to fill that in. And I think, my co-panelists here are going to give you some incredible ideas of where NFT platforms may go. So, Morten, I'm thrilled to have you on the panel because in many ways you come from a very different background. And tell us a little bit, and we're going to try and keep everybody as short as possible because we have a very small amount of time. But tell us about Svalbard Money and what you guys are trying to do with NFT platforms.
Thank you very much. It's always difficult to talk about the future, of course, but perhaps the future has something to do with context. And I'm just going to take you really quickly through the core of our project. And just some geography to begin with, Svalbard is very far north, very close to the Arctic, to the North Pole. It's the only treaty, the Svalbard Treaty is the only treaty that is still in force after the peace conference in France after the First World War. And it's a very special treaty in the sense that although Norway has complete sovereignty over these Arctic islands, citizens from all countries that have signed and ratified this treaty are free to go there and work, and that includes all of you actually, because the US was one of the first signatories to this treaty. Now, we can't talk about Svalbard and we can't talk about this project without mentioning the Soviet Union, because the history of Svalbard is also a history of the Soviet presence there. And this rather fascinating picture that you can see on the screen is taken in Leningrad during the first month of the horrific German blockade of that city, which left more than 1 million people dead. I have to say that, you know, the civil war here and the Vietnam War and all that, it's just a walk in the park compared to the siege of Leningrad. What's interesting about Leningrad, though, is that you have, still to this day, the Soviet, or should I say, the Russian mint that goes back to Peter the Great, and just immediately after the war, coins were minted in Leningrad that were used in Svalbard. And of course, these coins are the prime example of money having a direct and physical link to real mining and proof of work. And only yesterday, we dropped Soviet-inspired coins on OpenSea for sale. And it's sort of a homage to the Soviet history up in Svalbard and its contribution to the monetary history in Svalbard. So I don't know what the future holds. The entire NFT space may be, you know, plagued by hype and boom and bust. But at any rate, I think that going forward, having NFT projects that are, so to speak, steeped in context, history, relevance also, shouldn't be ignored at any rate.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic, Martin. And we were talking earlier about authenticity, and this is, you know, you can't get more authentic than that. This is real money that really existed, and just an amazing one direction of what you can do with platforms. So Daniel, you know, you're on the piping side of things and connecting all this, because ideas like Martin's are great by themselves, but they have to work with everything else. And what's your vision in terms of how we start connecting this all up?
Yeah, we're working with a number of different companies on platforms, and the one thing that we really have seen in a positive light in some platforms is they're very traditional. You can come in with a credit card. You don't immediately get asked to sign into your MetaMask wallet. And you know, the experience for someone that maybe isn't into the crypto space is very much like going to Amazon or anywhere else that has a nice user experience. You know, within a couple clicks, you can get around, buy things. Still seeing a lot of platforms that are pretty much velvet rope crypto club. You know, you've got to have a wallet, you got to have Ethereum, you've got to have, you know, Solana, whatever, you know, making it to where if you're not in the space and you don't understand how to navigate and, you know, you get into your Kraken account and pull out your wallet and buy your NFTs. I should be able to, if I want to use Zelle, I should be able to buy your NFTs with Zelle. I told one founder, I was like, listen, if you have the way to take chickens as a form of payment, you have someone that'll buy the chickens from you, take chickens. Payment rails are everything, because we see lots of things in other countries like Africa, for example. I work with Akon on his project, and prepaid cell minutes is their main store of value in a lot of the countries there in Africa. Like in Kenya, you owe a friend money, you'll send him minutes. You won't give him Kenya shillings. So, you know, we're even talking about taking that and having prepaid cell minutes as a form of payment on his platform. So I think, you know, wherever you go in the world, you have to kind of conform to what it is that those people, your target market, and if your target market is just crypto people, then guess what? You can have a crypto-centric platform, but if you do want to bring in the rest of the world, the 97% that doesn't know about crypto, I think you need to make it very simple.
Yeah, I think those are great points, and payments really underlie everything we do. And I think for those who are developing platforms or working on platforms, and you're not thinking about payments and some of the challenges of payments, you really need to work on that. There are a lot of issues there. But the payment side of things is critical, kind of below the surface tech. In many ways, Emily, the platform you're on, the actual, blockchain that you're using is the thing that people most identify with. And for a long time, that had been Ethereum. And I think we've all been thrilled, and I think many in the Ethereum community have been thrilled to see the growth of Solana as a new platform and as the NFT protocol on Solana. Metaplex are doing some cool things. How does the Solana community kind of look at this?
Yeah, so although we're part of the Solana blockchain and the community of Solana is really excited, where we're going and where we feel in our community every day is this is a platform for artists and creators and people who really believe in the value of ownership and decentralization. So being able to do your business, to do NFTs for 100x cheaper than the alternatives, that has really accelerated our growth. And we believe Metaplex today is the NFT protocol for Solana, but next year we have a good chance as any to be the NFT protocol, period. So one of our key features is we have our metadata standard. Anywhere that you go today that you see a Solana NFT marketplace, they're using our standard. So popular changes like FTX, different wallets like Phantom, they have 800,000 users. Audius, 5 million users now. It's all being powered by the Metaplex standard. And then on top of that, we have a variety of small contracts, smart contracts, and it's all intended to be, and is, fully decentralized. So Daniel, when you were talking about it needs to be ready for people who are not crypto natives, we are going to forever be decentralized, but we're going to give platforms the choice of what level they want to do that and what level of convenience they want to have. So every week we're making new launches. Airdrop is coming. On Friday we're going to have our charity, so we do royalty splits. So now you can kind of in the drop down ask a charity, and that is great for Giving Tuesday. And we're just going to continue to support our 25,000 projects and growing on Metaplex. And half the team is here today. And if you have any questions about how Metaplex can empower your project, we're Metaplex on Twitter, and DMs are open. Thank you.
That's great, Emily. And I'm going to jump across, Lior, to you, because in many ways, I think one of the most interesting questions around NFT platforms is all of a sudden this brand new question: where do traditional exchanges kind of fit into all this? And it sort of seems absurd, Lior, to look at Kraken as like traditional infrastructure. And I think hopefully everybody knows Kraken, which is absolutely one of the leading, fungible digital asset exchanges. But all of a sudden, you're thrust upon this question, what about NFTs? What about liquidity associated with them? And what role do digital asset marketplaces, fungible digital asset marketplaces play? And maybe can you tell us a little how Kraken looks at that?
Yeah, it's funny how you would mention a platform like Kraken could be almost like TradFi, given how quickly the space moves. But I think ultimately the platforms that win are the ones that are going to be the best shepherds or stewards of just the best content and content creators. So the ones that are able to incentivize IP and creators to come to the platform and kind of serve as central hubs to collect across all these different verticals, whether it's art, sports, blockchain gaming, just really serving as this central hub to access all of your assets as well as liquidity, and kind of move them very seamlessly throughout these different ecosystems and different environments. So, I think it's kind of a partnership between centralization and decentralization in terms of how you can incorporate, integrate all these decentralized environments, but also serve as a central hub to enable your users to access the liquidity and the assets that they desire. I think in addition to that, to my point about getting creators onto the platform, this is really a movement for creators and users. So it's all about flipping the incentive structure so that creators can accrue most of the value, whereas before you have these intermediaries that would extract value in the form of record labels or publishing studios. And by switching that power structure and giving it back to creators, you're really opening up the design space and opportunity set for creators to fully express themselves.
Well, it's almost like we planned it because, Tristan, as you pointed out, your new protocol business is nameless. And why is that? It's because this is exactly what Lior is talking about.
It's exactly what Lior is talking about.
Tell us a little bit about
Yes.
your philosophy and your approach to this space.
So Nameless actually evolved from an earlier project we launched called InfiniFT, which was a really hard name to say, which is why it's no longer the name. But the idea was to make a very white label contract that you as the artist, you can push out, and it follows standards that everybody else is supposed to comply to, you know, but as long as it has the open standards it complies to, then you're free to do whatever you want. So Nameless has evolved from that because as time has grown, like, it was nice for just simple uploads, but we're starting to see all kinds of other things. Like this summer has been PFP, avatar projects, you know, generative art pieces. Multi-chain has become a much more important thing, which, depending on what chain you on, it's funny that topic you brought about what chain you're on sort of defines you in this space, and it really shouldn't, because a lot of these, we're working on bridges that make them better. Each of them have a solid use case. It may not be appropriate for your project, but it could be for somebody else's. So Nameless, we're trying to make more of a developer API with modules that you can add in. So, oh, you want to be on Solana? Okay, add the Solana module. You know, oh, you want to do an Ethereum one? Because maybe you feel the security Ethereum gives you is better, okay, use Ethereum. If you want to use Polygon because you want some of the market effects of Ethereum, but you don't want to deal with some of the gas fees, okay, well, here's another option for you. All of these should not be seen as bad or negative. We should be looking at the positives on all of them. So that's the intention of Nameless, and I'm really excited because we're working on some of our beta, and we've got some some folks in there that we're working on. We've had a couple launches already. We launched VeeFriends with Gary Vaynerchuk over the summer, and that's been really popular. And it was amazing working with his team because he really took that, made a whole marketplace for it, and he's running with it. And some of the stuff he's coming out with that we're working with him on is really amazing. So that's a great example of something that, here's a creator, he wanted something very specific, and there was nothing on the market. So here's our Rails, just start adding the modules you want and hit go. You know, the easier we can make that for the average everyday person to do, the easier all of our jobs will be, and the more we can all interoperate together. So it's interesting because the Metaplex, Kraken, Accubits, all of these are part of the same project. So
Yeah, I think we're definitely seeing some themes here when we talk about kind of the future. We've got a finite amount of time left, and we're very gracious to the great team at NFT NYC to pull this all together. But I'd like to go kind of lightning round, about a minute per. I'll start with you again, Morten, without talking at all about anybody's project, their own project, but just tell us why people who are not yet in the NFT space should want to be here, and how the future platforms might draw people in who are not yet here. So maybe Morten, if you want to kick off.
Well, yeah, I suppose I'd like to kick off by quoting Leonard Cohen. He had this famous phrase stating that you're not going to like what comes after America. Of course, it's not entirely certain that the US empire is going to self-destruct, but I think it's very, very interesting to see how the US economy during the last 20 years or so has been characterized by this great innovation in terms of big tech and technology, and of which the NFT space surely is one part. So I'm rather optimistic in the sense that it's still relevant to come to the US and try to learn and acquire ideas, and that's really the main reason why I'm here as well. Thank you.
Yeah, no, technology innovation is exactly. Thank you. Yeah. So Daniel, how about your perspective? Why should people, creative people, technology people, come into the NFT space now and help build the future platforms?
Well, I think we've all seen the value that NFTs bring. Leo was kind of talking about giving power back to the creators. I mean, when you think about industries like music that, again, were dominated by their labels and intermediaries, and now you got, you still have RCA doing the normal way of doing things, like Kings of Leon, right? They released all their music in normal channels, but then you had these special NFTs, and you get this, and they were able to make more money off of that. And we talk to artists almost every day. They're like, hey, I like the fact that I can control this, and that I could have this value into perpetuity, that I can trust the blockchain, and I can trust this smart contract that, hey, that wallet, every time someone buys it, I'm going to get my royalty. So I think just the value that NFTs bring to people, the empowerment is going to bring them in. and I know you as a lawyer, it'd be interesting. One of the use cases that we just recently talked about that got people really excited was taking your will and the law firm turning that will into an NFT. So when your parents die, you don't have, or any loved one for that matter, you don't have this fight over all the kids. Like, well, hey, you changed the will, you did this. No, it's an NFT, and you can see when it was created and if it's ever been changed. So these kind of use cases that don't have anything to do with art or music or sports will also bring people into the space.
You know, I think that's a great point, Daniel, and you know, I don't know how many lawyers we have, you know, in this particular audience, but there's so much room, again, for innovation, for creativity, as you said. You know, trust and estates lawyers think they've been doing the same thing for years and years and years, and now maybe there's a whole new way of doing things. I also, you know, regulation is covered in many other panels here, but just my quick word on that is that I believe we win on regulation when we win the Thanksgiving table. And what I mean by that is when regulators and policymakers go home and their nieces and nephews and maybe their grandparents too start talking about how excited they are about the NFT space, people say, we've got to make this happen, you know, Morten, to your point. And I think really we'll drive change through our creativity and our enthusiasm and our honesty and, you know, our authenticity. And speaking of that, you know, Emily, you're doing like incredible things. As creators come to you and talk to you about, you know, using your platform and your tools, how do you, without talking about your platform specifically, but how do you get them to want to be part of the NFT community?
Yeah, I think the words that have already been said is that this is a new livelihood for many people. And if you go back to last week, Zuck at Connect shared Facebook's vision for the metaverse, and it was all these whizzy bang features and presence and having a lot of fun and entertainment. But what was missing was control. How, as you, as the business person, the artist and creator, how are you in control of your livelihood and your business? And I think in the long run, what we're going to see is NFTs, all that will continue to grow. And it's the job of the people in this room to figure out how to grow it faster and to keep it through a decentralized way so that we all benefit. And it's really equity for all, because the Web 2 internet that we have today is not that. So really restoring the internet back. So that's what we're continuing to be focused on at Metaplex, and definitely looking up to lift up all platforms also in this space.
Yeah, that's fantastic, and I think that inclusive spirit, Emily, really kind of carries through on what you're doing. And so, Tristan, you know, you've already told us a bit about Nameless, but if you're, again, trying to bring people in, like what's your hook to say, come over from whatever technology space you're in now or whatever creative space you're in and bring all of that into the world of NFTs?
You know, it's all use case. I have this debate sometimes because it's funny, naysayers, they always like, why would I want to use a blockchain, you know, or something like that. I'm like, if it's not the right use case, you should probably stick with an SQL database. It's faster and vetted. You know, there is no reason to plug a hole just because it sounds cool. Like, we have an opportunity to, the idea behind NFTs, the actual background is the provenance, the ownership, the management on the contract, the royalty payment, you know, the ongoing long trail royalty for artists. It's like they do it once, they get, now that one sale isn't their livelihood, hopefully they can get one sale because that's all they've got. Right now, every time it trades hands, they make a little bit on the long trail. So we're empowering people who didn't have that in the past without going through an intermediary, which would usually take most of that money. I mean, I really feel, going back to some of the topic about the future of NFT marketplaces, I mean, my excitement is once we see, OpenSea has done a pretty good job at generalizing. Like, it's a very, very good at covering everything, you know, as for a large thing. We're going to start seeing much more niche markets. We're going to see music ones that have better music players than, you know, a generalized one could. We're going to see 3D asset ones that maybe have 3D virtual worlds that you can go see them before you buy them. You got to, like, that's the future of what we're seeing, and that's, to your point about Meta coming in, and everybody's, whether you think it's a good or a bad thing, you know, it's bringing eyes to the space. But I do feel like making the best experience, either by smaller ones, is what's going to win it for the decentralized things, and it's going to show just how powerful it is.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think for me, maybe we save the most important point for last, because we've talked a lot about ownership of assets, but ownership is irrelevant if you can't dispose of an asset. You know, think of something you own and nobody wants to buy it from you. What good does that do you? You don't really own it. You know, Lior, if we don't have liquidity, ownership is sort of irrelevant, isn't it? And what is the future of liquidity in NFTs?
Sure, it's a great question. When you think about what gives NFTs their value, I would argue it's their permanence, right? I mean, you're dealing with these ostensibly cultural artifacts that ultimately, hopefully, will outlive any of us. So, I've actually had conversations with some of the leading kind of prolific collectors within the generative art space, and that's something that really inspires them to, seek out pieces of art that they really think have lasting relevance. And beyond that, it's just so fascinating to see kind of the explosion of just possible designs that artists have kind of been tinkering with. Speaking with one collector, he mentioned how it's kind of like an interplay between the objective experience, the subjective experience of what is pleasing to the eye for him, as well as marrying that with the objective, like what rarity traits or specific programmatic traits a particular generative art piece has that is what allows him to decide what to invest in. So I think permanence is really what imbues its value and ultimately what blockchain that resides on. At Kraken, we're pretty agnostic, and I guess we'll see what may the best chain win.
Yeah, we're regrettably out of time, but Emily, you made an amazing point, which is we had so much fun prepping for this session that we said, why don't we take this, into a Twitter Spaces conversation and continue the dialogue?
Yeah.
And I know I'd love that. I think the rest of the panelists would as well. So follow us on Twitter, and we'll get something out there soon enough and continue this discussion because there's so much more to be said. So thank you to my panelists. You guys are fantastic. Thank you to the audience, and
Thanks, everybody.
take care.